Hello, I'm Dawn Westmoreland coming from Asheville, North Carolina, the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains, coming from WPVM FM LP 103.7, the voice of Asheville. My show is called The Empowered Whistleblower. We blow the whistle on strategies to make the workplace better. Whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you work in a company, whether you're a leader, it's all about making a better workplace. My show airs every Tuesday here in Asheville at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone. However, if you're in another area like Seattle or you're in Canada, the Virgin Islands, because the show is syndicated, you may also listen to it at a different time. Now, recently, this is so exciting. I mean, I just got chills when I say this. I met Missi Hatfield. And when I found out she was also retired from the United States Air Force, I said, oh my God, I got to get to know this lady better because there's not many of us that retire from the Air Force. And there's not many of us that were in the Air Force as females. Missi, hello. How are you today?
Hey, Dawn, I am great. Thank you so much for having me today. I've just enjoyed the time we've gotten to know each other, and I'm going to enjoy today too.
Absolutely. Our listeners are probably curious, where are you coming in from? What city?
I am in Vero Beach, Florida, via a 20-year round trip tour of the world, courtesy of the United States Air Force, as you said.
Yeah, yes. And I'd like to share this, it's so important for people to know the change in the history of the Air Force, especially when it relates to women. Now, I went in 1985. I had a little college. I think at that time there were 11% women, and then I retired in 2005. What were your years, Missi?
I went in 1980. I was 17 and a half years old. My parents had to sign for me in order to go in. I turned 18 in basic training, and then I retired in 2000. Dawn, when I went in the Air Force, women were not issued boots. We were only issued low quarters, no boots.
Okay, I have to tell you, Missi, I was issued boots and we were the first group.
Okay.
So we felt pretty special. And I think this is so cool for anybody out there, especially women today that are thinking, what do I want to do with my life? You were a military training instructor. And I want you to briefly talk about what the duties are with the military training instructor.
Sure. I went there. It was a special duty assignment. You had to apply for it. And so went, and the job was to prepare people, young men and young women, for their time in the Air Force. And maybe some of the things we did, people didn't quite understand. For example, you had to hang your clothes a certain way, fold them a certain size, make your bed a certain way. Who cares? Well, it had to do with paying attention to detail, with following simple instructions, the ability to use a book. We're testing those things over and over and ingraining that into people that this is how you have to do it, so that when we turn you loose to do the wiring on an F-15, you're going to pay attention to details. You're going to follow the instructions. You're going to be able to do these tasks. That's what it was about. Now, of course, we did some marching and we did some dorm inspections and we did some classroom, and we did a little bit of yelling. I did a little bit of yelling too.
Knowing you now.
In fact, Dawn, if I understand, you possibly might have heard me yelling.
I have to admit, when we talked before this interview, I had to laugh because I was terrified of the MTIs because I was 20 going in the Air Force. I had a little college. I was shy, came from a small one stoplight town. I had no experience. And the first time they yelled at me, I mean, I about jumped out of my skin. I think you were an MTI in the 43rd Squadron when I was there in the Air Force.
Yes.
Isn't that a small, oh gosh, I'm getting chills. Wow.
Yes. So you may have heard me yelling. Not directly at you, because I think I was memorable enough you would remember it if I yelled directly at you, but
Well, wouldn't that be something had you yelled at me and I just don't remember now, and now we've become good friends. Oh my. Well, listen, I want to recognize you for your 20 plus years in the United States Air Force. That's no small feat. And all the time, we get thanked for our service. But the thing is that I want to honor you as a person and the sacrifices that you made, and also your family and friends, by supporting you in the Air Force.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And when I'm thanked for my service, I always reply with, it was my honor, because it truly, truly is an honor to serve this great country of ours and be given the opportunities that we have.
I must agree. And I also have to say that years later in the Air Force, I was an Air Force recruiter, and basically I told them, Missy, the same, my folks that were going in the Air Force, the same thing that you just talked about, what basic training is about. It's attention to detail. It's not to beat you up. If you can't follow simple instructions, how are you going to, work on multi-million-dollar aircraft? How fun is that,
Yep.
So now moving on, you retired from the Air Force and you become an entrepreneur. And that's what this show is all about, because it does take a certain mindset, and it also takes certain skills that we may not all have. So today, tell me what you're doing today and how you're helping entrepreneurs. And we're going to get into different aspects of being an entrepreneur.
Okay. Right now, we kind of are in the middle of a pivot of some things that are happening. And the new company that we've launched is called B2B Digital Services Agency. And in a nutshell, we go to businesses and we take all of the digital footprint off of their plate. We take all of the their website, we host it, build it, maintain it, all of their social media, any type of funnels and drip campaigns they need to do, handling their CRM, anything digital, we take it and handle it for them as their voice, always making sure that we are their voice. Even if we write something for them, we make sure it's the way they would have said it. So that basically we become part of their team on that. And then that opens up room for them to do the things that they are good at, that they have been called into this life to do. So that's what we do. That's the nutshell of it.
Well, I can appreciate that. I've worked for myself for the last 11 years, and I've also worked for other people too. And I know you've heard this before, Missy. The first thing that entrepreneur realizes very quickly, and you can tell me if you disagree, is what they're good at and what they are not good at. And when I first started out, I was lost. I'm like, oh my God, where do I start? I mean, you feel so lonely because, you're maybe working out of your home, which a lot of us are, and I am today. And so bringing on somebody like you said, it helps that person to have the time to be able to be, doing what they're good at.
Exactly.
Consulting, coaching, providing some kind of services or something like that. So let's go into a little bit more about your work that you're doing. So are you like, somebody says, hey, I want to work with you, Missy, and they say, but I don't know how to do email trails. I don't know how to set up email. I don't know how to, follow up with people, things like that. Or I have no clue how to do a website. That's not exactly easy.
It's not, especially if you're only doing it just one time for yourself. Is it worth putting the time in to learn how to do it if you're only going to do it the one time? What we do is that when we meet people and maybe they're interested in what we could do to be of service to them, we have a conversation. That's the most important part, is to have a conversation where we listen. We listen and we ask the right questions that give us the information we need, and also maybe stir some thinking that needs to go on for the entrepreneur, for the business owner. So we have this conversation where we try to nail down what exactly do you do? Who is your target? Because everybody can't be your target. Otherwise, if you go after everyone, you serve no one. And then we look at how you want to approach that. Once we have a really good idea of what it is that your business wants to achieve, then we start rolling out, this is how we can get there and what we can do. Let's say, for example, we work with someone and they need a website, and they need some social media posts, and they need a CRM where new clients come into and emails would be sent out. Okay, so we would explain all that. We would put it all together. Now, something unique about us, if you call up your local web designer, they are going to tell you a price for a website. And it's going to be somewhere, if they've been around for a while, and we've been around for a while, if they've been around for a while, it's going to be north of $3,000. It could be all the way up to $10,000 for a website. That's a big chunk of change for somebody to come up with. So what we do instead is that when we figure out everything that you need, it then becomes a subscription. And it becomes a monthly payment that for all of these things to be done, we stay in contact with you. I have a client right now, we have it on the calendar. We meet every 2 weeks for her to tell me what she wants on her social media posts for the next 2 weeks. And so we make sure we stay in line with what you're looking for. It's a subscription, you can leave anytime. And if you leave before a year, then you just have to, if you want to take your website, then you would pay for the website then. But if you stay the year, at the end of the year, you own the website. And if you decide to leave us, which we don't think you will because we provide such great service, but we always want to leave on good terms. So we would make sure and help you move your website, help you move your emails, help you move your social media, whatever it is you need, we would help do because we want to be of service.
Wow. I love it. That's great. It's a win-win. So, you know, for example, if I wanted to be a customer and I really lean into resiliency with the work that I do, how do you write content for social media, you know, when you're not me? I mean, could you give examples? Because I think that's really important. How do you capture that person's voice where it's coming from them?
Well, I would go and probably read just about everything you've ever posted just to get an idea. We've had a conversation. I'm learning your humor. I'm learning the things that you're passionate about, what's important to you. And I build, we call it an avatar. I build a person and I'm total transparency here. I use ChatGPT because I think that it is a good tool. It's not the end all, but I would take and I would go in and I would describe, okay, you are going to write an article, and I would describe everything about you. And then I would say what it is that you're going to write and what I want the outcome to be. I get that, I put it on another piece of paper, and then I completely re-edit it because I'm not going to just put out what ChatGPT puts out, but this gives me ideas. It stimulates things. And then I start making sure that I'm using words and phrases and tempo that you would use.
Gotcha. And I have to say, it's growing on me. AI is growing on me. I just had a Zoom chat with somebody recently, and I think it was Firefly. I never heard of it, but it's an AI, you know, tool. And it notes as long as you send an email, you know, to Firefly, and they have, you know, I'm not promoting Firefly. I'm just saying that's just one of probably many, and Otter's probably another one. So that's terrific. So let me ask you this, because it can be lonely, you know, working for yourself, especially when you're single like me. You know, I'm actually divorced, but best friends with my former spouse. You know?
That's good.
He lives 45, 50 minutes away, you know, when we do talk and stuff like that. Do you get involved in the social aspect? Because again, it's I'm going to quote Dr. Summer Watson's, what she's always talking about these days, the emotional entrepreneur. That's her tagline. And I need to give her credit that she's a fantastic person and friend, because there are emotions involved with being an entrepreneur and a mindset.
Yes, very much so. And you can run the gambit of emotions and thoughts just in one day. You can have anxiety in the morning about something and then move into you're excited about something else. And well, I mean, I'll just my morning, I was a little anxious this morning about a couple of things that I have to get done this week. I felt anxious. I talked to my business partner, and you know, because I always talk, we talk when you have anxiety, talking helps. And then we moved on to I got excited about being here with you, and next I'm motivated to move on to the things that I have to do for today. So I think that as an entrepreneur, and sometimes working solo, you have to, number one, be aware that this happens. Be aware that you're going to have these kinds of feelings and emotions, and then make decisions about what you're going to do, and try and make those decisions when you're in a good spot. One day we had a conversation about, it is really easy, love our home, it's really easy to stay right here 8 days a week. You know, it's easy. And so it was we have to get out and we have to meet people and make friends. And so we made a point, whether that's going to church or that's going to a social group that you know, or sports that you like to play, get out and do something, because we need to take care of ourselves physically, mentally, and emotionally. Absolutely. Otherwise, you're not going to be any good to anybody and you burn out. So I always kind of, I start my, I think I told you this about the list. I start my every morning making a list of what I'm going to do that day. The first thing I put on my list is make a list. That way, when I get done, I can check something off right away. And so I've already put that mindset of, you know, kind of accomplished. Maybe it's something silly, but for me, it triggers, I have now done something. Now I want to get the rest of my list done too.
You know what? I'm really glad that you talked about Missy. And I'm guilty of it too. And I was smiling and laughing when you said 8 days a week. I'm like, I got you, sister.
Mhm.
I got you, my Air Force sister. Get it totally. Sometimes I find myself staying home way too much. And maybe you have feelings on this. We do need human interaction.
Very much.
We were not meant to be all by ourselves and to be alone.
Mm-hmm. Very, very much. There's a story about the Nazis when they were, many of them were arrested. There was a place called Spandau Prison in Europe. Did you ever hear about it? In
Yes.
Germany? Okay. And there ended up, part of their punishment was total solo. They couldn't talk. The guards wouldn't talk to them. No one would touch them. They were allowed to see their family one time a year, but they were not allowed to touch. Can you imagine spending your whole life, no one will talk to you and no one will touch you? That's, to me, that punishment was the most horrifying of any that I could imagine for someone, that kind of isolation. Even people that are in solitary confinement get a little crazy from it, because we need human beings. We're social creatures, the way we're made.
Yes, yes. Now, I received your book. You sent it to me. Thank you. And I was saying, I've gotten through about 75% of it, and it's called No Cape Necessary, right? No cape, or no cape needed, I believe.
No cape required.
Required. Okay, I'm getting there.
They're all true. All your statements
all
were true.
synonyms, but now let's get it out. Let's get the right title. Okay. And you sent it to me, and I'm always curious, you know, and I started reading. I'm like, wow, this is very inspiring. Your stories. You talk about, you know, being in the Azores and with your husband, Howie, at the time when you were in the Air Force. He was also in the Air Force, that you provided Christmas and Christmas presents to the children who probably wouldn't have had anything. And you also have some other great stories. What made you write a book? And especially an inspiring book.
When I was working at Fish and Wildlife, after I had retired from the Air Force, a couple other jobs, and I ended up working at Fish and Wildlife Service, somebody stuck on my door this little picture of a little girl holding her hands like this. This is when the heart was kind of getting popular. And it says, "Kindness is my superpower. What's yours?" I tell you what, I kept that on my door for the rest of the time that I worked there, because I like being kind and I want people that come into my office to be kind. So that always just kind of stuck with me, that it would be kind of cool to write a book. Well, after I got out of Fish and Wildlife, I thought I was going to be a speaker and fill stadiums with my words and my wisdom and everything. But it would help to have a book. And I remembered that kindness is my superpower. I started thinking about some things that happened. The Azores, also the story in Tarsus with the boy that I met. And then I started thinking about other stories that were where people extended themselves with whatever their superpower was. If it was just bringing someone into their home to give them a meal, if it was enduring hardships of the going across the Alaskan tundra to bring medicine to a town. And that turned into the Iditarod race now. I mean, we honor that with the race. And so it's just, if we look around, it's so easy to watch the news, and the world is a horrible, horrible place if we believe everything that the news says. Yeah. But if we look around us, we look at history, and we look at our own lives and ourselves, there is good stuff. And so that was the idea, was that I wanted to put good stuff out there just to remind people you don't have to buy out Disneyland and send children there. You can just be nice in your neighborhood. Kid with a lemonade stand, buy some lemonade.
Yeah.
Just buy some lemonade.
Yes. I mean, there were so many good stories. One story that really stood out, and I'm going to admit, because I am always transparent and authentic about, life and what's going on with me. When I read that story about all those Air Force personnel people, your peers, their wives, their girlfriends, their family members showing up at your door to support you during one of the hardest, and I'm sure one of the darkest times of your life, I cried. I cried. You got me to cry. This top Air Force retired person is human. I'm a human being. I was like, oh my God, would you talk about that for just a minute? Because I think other people need to hear it. It's a compelling story.
Sure. My husband and I were remodeling our house, and it was a bit of a mess. And one morning I came home from a midnight shift, and my husband had passed away. He'd had a heart attack. And I mean, I was 32 years old and just not prepared for something like that. Had no idea what was going on. So anyway, we got through all of the things that you get through when you lose someone that way. And I was home. I think I'd been back to work a couple of weeks, and I'm looking around going, oh my gosh, I have to finish this. And I went out, I used to go out to where Howie worked and visit with the guys sometimes. And I went out there and I was talking to a guy, his name was Lee Crabtree. And I told him, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have to finish this. I have to do that. And the siding needed to be put on the house is what it was. And Lee just looked at me and he says, well, how about Saturday morning at 7:30? I said, okay, sounds good to me, thinking he would show up. Well, a little before 7:30, I stepped outside and there were 17 men on my front lawn, all of them with tool belts on.
Oh my gosh.
And they proceeded to get to work. You think you had tears. I had tears. This former drill sergeant had tears. So then at lunchtime, right around lunchtime, this older couple showed up with the barbecue and all the food and fixed food for everybody that was there. And then in the afternoon, here come the wives and the girlfriends and the kids, and they start cleaning up everything. And by the end of the day, the whole outside of the house was done. All because my husband was so well loved and respected. The Air Force family, from your first assignment, you're a part of a family. You'll never have Thanksgiving alone.
Right.
You always have support, love and support from people. And just because you're Air Force, that's why I reached out to you. I was reaching out to connect with Air Force veterans, because as being retired, and I've been retired now since 2000, so 23 years I've been retired. Unbelievable.
Wow.
These are people that I still want in my life. There's a standard and a way that we are that I still want to have contact with.
That's an incredible story. When Hurricane Opal, this is over 30-something years ago, I was at Tyndall Air Force Base, and Hurricane Opal's coming in. I think it's a Cat 4, almost a 5, and I'm married at the time. I'm like, we got to get out of here. And it took down a lot of huge, huge oak trees in my yard, and they were all over the place. And all I did was mention it to one guy at work. I was working personnel, HR, and I was in an orderly room, the communications orderly room. Mentioned one guy, he and his family, and then 10 other people, they come over and they spend the entire day chopping up trees and wood and that blocked the driveway and luckily didn't hit the house. So I get it about the Air Force family. So let's tie that into the work that you're doing today. It sounds like you become a family with your clients.
Yes.
Work with you.
Yes. I can tell you that every single website that I've built, I've become friends with, to whatever level with each and every one of them, because when I'm working with somebody and when Nancy's working with them, we get invested. We want you to succeed as much as you want to succeed. And we just want to be part of that success. And so we always make a point of, as I told you before, we listen. What do you really need?
Yeah.
If you don't need something, I'm going to tell you, you don't need it. And if there is something in a less expensive way of getting it, I'm going to tell you how to get it. So that, because we all don't have the time and we all don't have the resources immediately. We have to grow and build into most of these things. And so that's what we do, is we try to help people build and grow. We tell folks right away, a website's not a one-shot deal. It's going to grow with you. It may be a one page when you start. By the time you finish, it might be 6 or 7.
And I have to tell the listeners this, okay? The first thing Missy did was go to my website, and she got back with me and she says, Dawn, your website's down. And I'm like, what? Here I had looked at it in a month, and had she not said something to me, I would not know. And of course, I went to the host, we got it fixed. There were some bugs, there were some problems and things like that. Do people, and thank you for that.
Yes, absolutely.
Months, and people could have been looking for my website, and they're like, I know if they don't find their website, people make instant decisions, or
yes,
they have a belief system within seconds that, maybe this person isn't a professional or something like that. How important is the website, Missy?
Well, let me tell you something. When you get up in front of a crowd to speak, you have 7 seconds to get they're going to make every determination about you in that 7 seconds. A website has 3 seconds before someone will decide if they're going to stay and get what you need. So you need to be very compelling, very eye-catching. It needs to work. It needs to be easy to use. The navigation needs to be easy. And you're right. You have to have a website, even if it's just a web page, because or if it's just a one page, because if you meet someone and they want to find out about your work, they are going to go to your website first, and they're going to go to your social media, because they're going to learn all about your business on your website, and they're going to go to your social media and learn all about you. Both are important.
I'd love to talk about social media, Missy, because I think it's so important. And, because I learned about Air Force recruiting, you learn a lot about marketing, and you know how important it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
How important, and this is just your opinion, is it that people are mindful of what they put out on social media? I mean, some people put a whole journal of, I hate my ex-husband, I hate my ex-wife, I hate my boss. Let's talk about how important it is for the content that you put out there in social media.
Yeah, I shudder at some things that people put out. We all have opinions. We all have things that we believe, and most things I can scroll past. When it gets hateful or ugly, then I have to just, now we're done, because I don't want that to come into my life, into my eyes, into my ears, into my heart. Yep. So I guess if you, I suggest to people that they have separate personal and professional, like a Facebook page. You can have a professional one along with your personal one. Still, though, you got to be mindful of what you're posting, because people form opinions. Just like, let's say you go out to dinner and you're sitting there and you're mouthing off and saying things that are ugly. Maybe they're profane, maybe they're vulgar. People at the next table are making an opinion about you. Yeah. And there are people I won't do business with based on what's on their social media, because I don't want to contribute to that. Same thing if I go to the store. There's certain restaurants I won't eat at because I don't want to contribute to what they espouse. And that's what we do. We speak with our dollars.
Wow.
We don't have to fight with people on social media. You don't have to do that. People think they do. Instead, don't buy their product. Don't recommend them to someone, etc.
Yes. Well, this time has gone so quick, and it always does with people, like you, Missy. I want to thank you first for all that you've done, serving in the Air Force 20 plus years, writing a very inspiring book that I get to finish reading today. How can the listeners contact you? Do you have a website, LinkedIn, social media that you'd like to share, contact info?
I do. Okay, so the easiest one to remember as we're making this pivot is Missi, and I spell it MISSI at webshot1, WEBSHOTONE.com. That's our website company. And then we have the B2B consultants.com. And so it's Missi at the B2B, as in business to business, consultants with an S.com. And so they can reach me at either one of those. I don't know if you're allowed to do this. I'd like to gift you a couple of books to give away to your readers. However you.
That I'll put it under the marketing. We're
Okay.
unfortunately out of time.
Okay.
Listeners, stay empowered. We'll see you next time. We will put that out there. Take care.